Okay, well, welcome everybody to...
The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Welcome everyone to the Applied Day Session 2. My name is Eric Miller, and I'll be running through the data management section. So for those that attended the earlier session today on dashboards and the future of making things, hopefully you enjoyed that one. Today we'll be talking about some data management subjects, kind of building off of some of that stuff. We'll actually look at a dashboard within Fusion Lifecycle. Is kind of it has that ability as well built in, and then talk about some other tools and just kind of some data management topics in general that will hopefully help your company. I know there's probably a mixture of attendees today that some are probably already using a good data management tool. Some may not be. So hopefully we'll have a little bit of something for everybody. We'll get into reasons to use a data management tool, and then I guess some of the aspects within both the Autodesk options for data management, Vault, and Fusion Lifecycle. We're going to take a look at a little bit of those, take a look at some of the features within each of those tools. But then also, for those that are already using either Vault or Fusion Lifecycle, what's coming out in 2018. So everybody's kind of getting antsy. I've already got quite a few calls on that, so we'll try to talk about some of the new features that are coming out. I think a few of the releases have starting to go out, but I think as far as I just checked today and still did not see Vault 2018 in my Autodesk account, but it should be just right around the corner, so out for that. Just a couple intro things, I guess, before we start diving into the material. Again, my name is Eric Miller. I'm the Tech Resources Manager here at Applied Engineering. I guess my background is in mechanical engineering, but now I guess my group basically does the software implementations. We do training, we do support. We still do projects from time to time as well. So that's kind of the and we do software demos and help with our sales team as well. So that's kind of the role of my group. We've got a team that focuses on a lot of different areas. Autodesk, as you know, has many different tools, so it's definitely a lot to keep on top of. But it's also we feel like we're lucky because we get to see the kind of what's on the cutting edge and always get to learn new stuff. So all right, let's take a look. I did want to mention too, before we get too far, that you are in listen-only mode, but we're going to try to reserve some time at the end of this presentation for questions. We'll probably go about 45 minutes, and then we'll take the last 5-10 minutes to hopefully answer any of your questions. So in the GoToWebinar screen on the right side in that dialog box, you'll notice if you expand that out, there's a section for questions. So please enter your questions in there. There's also a chat window, but just to make sure we get them all kind of located in the right spot, please put them in the question side. You'll notice there's also some handouts. I'll cover that a little bit later as well, but there's some downloads there, so feel free to download that. And obviously the presentation is being recorded, so if somebody couldn't attend today, feel free to, or we'll be able to send this out to you to be able to show that to other people that couldn't attend today. And just a couple things about Applied Engineering. Our three pillars here: top talent, total technology, and absolute adaptability. And we've got a large team of engineers, also application developers. So we feel that we really can fit the needs of our customers. Obviously, a lot of our customers are in the manufacturing industry. So whether it be all the way from design up front, the concept stage, all the way down to building your products, we can fill in wherever you need some help there. So feel free to, if you need to learn more about what we're capable of, there's actually a video here too out on our website, and obviously a lot more information on our website too. I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but feel free to go out and check that out if you get a chance. All right, so today for the data management side, we're going to talk a little bit about revision control, lifecycle management, change management, BOM management. So obviously the idea is managing data. If you think about the the need for data to be accessible to all these different departments in your company, and you want it to be, obviously you hear the term one source of truth is a common phrase when it comes to design data, not even design data, but obviously you get into your service department, your accounting, everything has to be accurate, and we want to make sure it's accessible to those that need it, and that they can get it as quick as possible. So, over time, tools have gotten better. Obviously there's always enhancements. And now a big thing out that Autodesk is really focusing a lot on is the cloud. So we've got the ability to store stuff within the cloud and have that immediately accessible just with an internet connection, basically anywhere you're at. So that's kind of another thing that I'll focus on a little bit today as far as Fusion Lifecycle as Autodesk Cloud Data Management Tool. Okay, so a couple other topics, I'll try to touch on. I know we don't have a ton of time today, and if you really want to expand on any of these subjects, feel free to let me know. We're always happy to do demos, talk about the, how some of these tools can help your company improve your processes. So I'll just touch, a couple of these, obviously file management. That's kind of your check-in, check-out, making sure no one is saving over the top of somebody else's stuff. I guess I've had the privilege of working for quite a few different companies, whether it be through Applied or even prior to that. And I know one of the companies, the smaller one I worked for, was they basically didn't have any data management tool, and you opened up a file. If you made a change, you saved over the original one, and it just was kind of the way that we did design. It was, like I said, a small company, but even with that, you lose the history there, you lose the ability to go back and understand what changed in the previous design. So that it definitely is a critical thing that you keep the history. Everybody's pointed to the same spot. You know who's working on what. It helps for collaboration, that kind of stuff. So obviously with Vault 2 and with some of these other tools, the ability to search for things can really be a big time saver. If you're just storing things in a Windows environment, obviously you've probably learned how difficult it is sometimes once your data set starts to grow and get larger, to be able to go find and find the exact copy that you want and not have potential duplicates out there. It can be a good option, at least, to be able to use different properties within the model to be able to search for that stuff. So that's a key thing with a data management tool. And then some of these others, like if you've got multiple sites and you want to have the same data at each location replicated throughout your company, that's something with we'll talk about the different versions of Vault here. But when you get into that scenario where not everybody's under one roof, but you need to make sure that they're still accessing the same data, then replication is something that comes with the Vault Professional version, and it can be a nice way to distribute your information throughout each site. Okay, well, we'll jump into the system a little bit here itself instead of I'll cover some of these topics as we get into it. I think it's always nice to look at the live system versus looking at PowerPoint slides here, so hopefully that'll be beneficial. But so the tools, like I mentioned, I guess my background is in mechanical engineering. I did work for a company I mentioned before that was very small and didn't have a management system, and then I also had a chance to work for a company that had a very well put together everything was documented. There was a good flow there, and it was a homegrown system that our company actually helped build. And you really start to see the advantage of a good data management tool. And so I guess over the years I've worked with a whole bunch of them. You're probably familiar. You maybe heard Windchill. I mean, that's one of our competitors' tools. And you've probably heard of PDM Works. We've actually built one for another company called Chinook. I mean, there's all kinds of options out there. But I do kind of like the tools that Autodesk provide. I think they're not too complex. They're fairly easy to deploy and install and implement, and I think they're fairly easy to learn, and you don't have to have all kinds of different screens and applications running. I like that it's concise, and you've got everything you need at your fingertips, it seems like. So we'll talk a little bit about Vault, and what Vault is data management software that helps designers and engineers organize their design data, manage documentation, track revisions, and other development processes. And like I mentioned earlier, that the professional version is kind of the higher end. There is a cost associated with that one, as well as Workgroup, which is just a few less features than professional. But Vault Basic comes with your product design suite, your factory design suite. Any of those tools come with Vault Basic, and so that's can be kind of a nice entry-level way to just get your feet wet with data management in the Autodesk world. The other one we'll mention today a little bit is Autodesk Fusion Lifecycle. So really the difference, you may wonder, okay, what's the difference between, why does Autodesk have two different tools for data management? And really the one is more of a PDM system, product data management, where Fusion Lifecycle is kind of more of a PLM, product lifecycle management. So your PDM system typically manages the CAD data, the files themselves, whereas Fusion Lifecycle is kind of a broader range. It's more of it can be project management, obviously communication throughout the entire company. So we get into more, service, sales, marketing, all the other people that need to access some of that design data. You can access that through Fusion Lifecycle. So I'll just kind of read quickly this paragraph here. The Fusion Lifecycle makes the management of processes, projects, and people easy and effective by automating key tasks and delivering the right information to the right people at the right time. Because Fusion Lifecycle is on the cloud, everyone on your team has access to the data they need at any time, anywhere. So that's obviously another key difference between the two is, Autodesk Vault typically is stored on-premise or potentially like a virtual. You can virtualize that as well and have it stored off-premise. But typically just for the speed of accessing some of those large assemblies and data sets, it's nice to have the data at least replicated to your site if you do, go through some kind of, virtualization or off-premise storage. So, and then with Fusion Lifecycle, it's cloud-based. So basically, it's stored on Autodesk servers, and you're accessing it anywhere you want. You don't have to have, the hassle or the extra overhead of having the hardware on site yourself. Okay, went a little bit too far there. We'll get to questions here in a bit. So, but I would like to jump into the live system here initially. So let's just talk about Vault initially here. And I guess just a couple of the key concepts that go into Vault itself are, we have a central storage location. So we have a central server. There's a Vault server software that's installed on that. That's where we create our user groups, but you don't really have to do a whole lot of upfront work there, because if you're using Windows Active Directory, you can just pull in those users and then give the appropriate permissions to each of those users. So I'm showing Vault Professional right here. However, Vault Workgroup and Vault Basic both look pretty similar. So you're not going to see a whole lot of change between those two, except for, say, like, some extra columns in here, which I've got lifecycle states are shown as a column. I've got revisions. So right now I'm at revision 1 for this particular part. But one of the other key aspects or key concepts and aspects of Vault is that we want to be able to work in our CAD tool, not always have to bounce back and forth. So, if I right-click on this file and I want to just do an open, say, into Inventor and begin working on it, we'll say yes, we'll check it out. So that checkout process tells me that it's currently, now I'm going to be the one working on it. And within Inventor here, now we can start manipulating this part. So I'm going to go ahead and open, let's see, that was checked out, or it should have been there, because I could have just hit refresh. But at this point now I can make changes to my assembly and do most of my work, even your check-ins, check-outs, some of the state changes that you do, all of that can be done right within Inventor. And over here on the left, notice that you still got the ability to go back to my model tab. So this is just like if you've been using Inventor, it's going to be just like you're used to, basically building assemblies, building parts, building features. But there is, notice then, a Vault tab that is added up on top when we've got the integration built in, so I can open files directly from Vault, place files from Vault. We can do our check-ins, check-outs here. Let's say, for instance, if I just do a simple change here, Let's just add a plane. Maybe we're doing a work plane here for whatever reason that we want to add something offset on the top of that. So we'll just add that plane in, and I'm just going to save it. And it gives us some nice indicators too of what has been changed. If I go back to my Vault tab or Vault browser, now notice the circle turned green. It still has a check mark, meaning that I've got it checked out, but now it's got the ability here to check it in. So now that if I want to share that change with everyone else on my team, I just right-click on that, go check in. Now this is almost like a little mini ECO here too. We can actually say what we did, on the part. So we can go, let's see, we added plane for features. Put that in. Now as it gets checked in, it also creates the DWF file in the background so that we can visualize that within Vault, not only in the Vault client, but also in the thin client. And we talk about thin client. Between the thick and the thin client, really the main difference is that the thick client here is an installed application, on your desktop, typically on a workstation, that normally you would have this installed just for the kind of the heavy users of Vault. But for sharing the drawings and sharing the assemblies with everybody else, whether it be the factory floor, to service, to marketing, they can typically use the thin client. And the nice thing about that is there's no, I'm just going to refresh that. There's no license required for the thin client. So we can distribute that information, without any extra cost, and all they need is a web browser. So if I look at, just for the sake of showing that now, I guess, I've got a web browser open here. Oh, that's actually my PLM 360. Let's go to the other one. There's the Vault Thin client. And if I just hit the Project Explorer, typically if most guys on the guys and gals on the shop floor may already know the part number they're looking for, so they can just type it in over here in a search. But the nice thing is too, you can also just dig down into it and be able to find the folder that you're looking for. Maybe you're going to be looking for a few different files. So here we can grab the BOM vise here is the part that I was looking at. Once we open that up in the thin client, we've got the ability here to look at the where used, look at all the parts that are used to build that. So obviously some pretty valuable information. That's, over and above Windows, what you get in Vault is the ability for the relationships to stay intact there. So we're seeing the parents of every part. If you're going to make a change, obviously that's one of the first things you should do before you change a part, figure out, okay, how many different assemblies is that used in? So it's, critical information there to be able to know the relationships of the parents and children of each of these parts and assemblies. All right, so we can look at the children. I think in this case here, let's say we grab this piece of the vise. Maybe I'm interested in that one, and then just make sure if I look at the parents, it is only used in this one particular vise. But in a lot of cases, if you've got common parts, it could be multiples, many different assemblies utilized there. Now another nice thing on the thin client is the ability to look at all the details. So if you think about browsing through a like a Windows folder, you don't really have any of this stuff come with, just to be able to read as far as what's the name of the file, who checked it in last, when was it checked in, how old is it, all kinds of different information here are stored with each of these models. Obviously if you look at the drawing, sometimes that stuff is shown in a title block, but there's definitely key details there that you might want that are we don't always put into a title block. So let's take a look at the assembly again. One other nice thing here about the thin client is I don't just get a preview of it here. I can also open it up just within, and I'm looking in, this is a Internet Explorer 11. If I look at click on the preview of it, I can actually pop it open and be able to, just from an Internet Explorer window, be able to rotate this around. I can explode this. I can do measurements on it. So from a shop floor perspective or even other departments, it's pretty valuable. And obviously, you don't want to always have to just, call up the engineer, call up the designer, or send them an email. You want the information right away, and this is it. This thin client is looking right into the Vault. So they're seeing that one source of truth. Obviously, a DWF file is it's sort of a copy. It's a lightweight visualization file of your inventor assembly, but it tags along with it. So every time we update our inventor assembly, this is going to get updated too. So one of the nice things, I don't know, not a lot of our customers maybe utilize some of these, but I really like the ability to move and rotate parts, just from this window. So if we grab, click on a part, it's got a couple of little indicators here as far as rotating or translating these files. We can move, this pin out, kind of explode this assembly to be able to kind of see what's inside, potentially. And if I just hit undo on that, so we can take snapshots of this too. We can save DWFs, do markups. If we look at the markup and measure here, there's some blank tools. I can add some notes to this and just, maybe send it back, back to the designer. Is this the right part? Something like that, and create a, just save as another, save as a, potentially a PDF, or if I go to the home here, I can do printed or do a, here's my other save as here to another DWF potentially. One last thing I guess to point out here is we can do cross sections. So I think that can be pretty valuable a lot of times for, somebody on the shop. If I pick a side there and then just run the cross section through the center, we can see, okay, what do the internal components look like? What does my clearance look like? And do some measurements in here potentially on what clearance I've got. So just some nice tools added into this thin client to be able to kind of spread that information and empower your other users beyond the engineering department to get the information they need. Okay, let's get out of the thin client here for a second and get back into Vault. Obviously, another reason for using Vault is the ability to copy design data pretty quickly. I mean, you can do Inventor copy designs, or do a save a copy within Inventor, but there's just a few more tools available here if we use a copy design within Vault. I'll just kind of show you what that interface looks like quickly. So we do a copy design on an assembly. We can go down here and right-click, do copy, to a certain, and this is just the copy. We just right-click on it. It creates a copy of it and puts it right in the same folder. But let's say I want to put maybe some of these files in a whole separate folder. Like we've got a screw sub assembly here. Maybe I want to copy that to create a whole new folder here. So maybe under my BOM, we'll scroll up here. On the BOM, I'm going to create a subfolder underneath that. So we just new folder here, and we'll just say new sub-assembly. And then we can just hit OK to place, my new copy of that whole subassembly into that folder. So there's obviously, some other things we can do as far as auto numbering. If we go into the setup here, there's some numbering schemes that I can pull in, whether I want it sequential or, right now it's set to none is my default. So, with that created, then I can go over here to the, let's see, to my numbers, and then here's my prefix. Right now it's got no prefix set, but if I want to just say, new, or maybe test or something like that, let's put in test. Then you can see it takes the base name and adds test over here. Maybe I'll put test underscore. And, there's also some find and replace we can do there too. So if we go find and replace the blank with test underscore, let's see, blank place. Actually, I guess these blanks here didn't, for some reason that didn't copy through, but anyway, I don't have a ton here, but I guess the easiest thing would be to replace test with something else. If I go select in here, let's see, my find and replace go now. There it is, find and replace, and we choose, okay, I want to change test to maybe new underscore. There, I guess not that that's a real new technology or anything. Obviously, find and replace is something that's been around, but obviously, when you've got a list of like 100 parts in here, something that you're doing in a large assembly, and maybe you just want to do an underscore 2, or maybe it's already at underscore 1. You can see how it can definitely speed up the process. But as soon as you're done creating your new files, we go. Let's see. Actually, I better put a new name in for some of these here too. Prefix. And we just hit the go button. and it should create our new assembly in that same environment. So we didn't even have to open up Inventor. We close out of that. Now we should see our new, here's our new bomb vise right here. Obviously it's still utilizing some of the common parts that I didn't change, but if we look at the uses down below, here it's using my 3 new parts there that I added. So all the relationships should be intact. That should open right up in Inventor without any issues. All right. Obviously, the where use is another key thing we talked about. If I look at my some of these other plates now, we're going to, like this job plate, should be used in a couple different assemblies. Where used? Oh, that one's just in the. Let's try a new one here. New collar. Let's go to pin. Where used and expand that out. Now we can see it's used both in the new screw sub-assembly and the old one. So we're kind of starting to build more parents to that particular assembly. Now notice, I guess when we talk about revision control, these parts came in initially at work in progress. That's typically what we would set up by default. You can set up as many life cycle states as you want, but I guess some of the base ones that I guess the majority of our customers probably use would be work in progress, for review stage, that kind of when it's maybe you want another set of eyes on it, you want to have the supervisor look at it, and then the release stage. And a release locks it out, and at that point it's ready for production, and we can't change it anymore just by doing a checkout check-in anymore. It puts a lock next to it. So at that point, the next time we change it, we need to bump the revision. In this case, it would bump from 1 to 2 for our revision if you're using a numerical scheme. So that's kind of how those, and then I guess the last state, there's 4 kind of base states. The last one would be obsolete. So eventually if that release file eventually becomes something that we don't want to build anymore, we can move it to that obsolete state just to kind of keep the design tracked anyway and still in our system. You never know if service eventually will need to come back and look at that part, but the obsolete state just means we're never going to build that one anymore. All right, so the way to change between those states, there's a couple ways we can do that too. If you're not using the built-in ECO procedure within Vault, which I'll show here in just a second, what you can do is just grab your files, right-click, and do a change state. So if I'm ready to put this at for review, I just select that as the option, put for review. And now notice it puts the little red, the kind of little red arrows going in a circle, meaning that I have the circle over below those mean that it matches my local part in Inventor. So basically whatever I've downloaded to my local machine is matching if it's got the white circle. Now that I change it to for review, it's like a whole nother file. So if I look at the history of that, we can see that it went from work in progress to for review. And now in order to, if I want to update my local copy, I've got to re-download this one. So if that makes sense, I'm basically changing, I added a new file out in the server, and it's an under review file or for review file. Now, if the next person that comes in, maybe your supervisor takes a look at those, they can then change it to the release state. I'll just kind of show that quick. They go to released. And now at this point, I'm just going to re-download those. I'm just going to do a get on them to get the most current local. And actually I must have I'm probably in as admin right now, so it's actually showing that I have full access here to the release files, which normally I wouldn't. And I'll just kind of show you quickly how to change that. If I go into my Vault, this is kind of an admin function here. We would change our life cycle, and I believe this is the base. If I go to security here, everyone has, let's see, let's go to released. Everyone should just have allow access there. So let me just check one more thing. My category is engineering right now. Let's go to file categories, basic release process, set, standard numeric. And unless I have there are other permissions that can be set there too. Normally I would see a lock next to that, and it wouldn't let me check it out at release state. So I just kind of created this category before. So again, there's permissions in the category or in the life cycles. There's also permissions on the bill on the folder potentially. So if I go to the details here, I can kind of just check effective access, and I could add a user here. So I'm in as administrator right now. Let's just see what I've got, and it does show allow. So it is giving me full access. Maybe I'll just log out and log in as emailer, and we'll just kind of see if the lock shows up there. And there's what I was looking for. So now as my regular user, it's got the lock next to it. If I try to do a checkout on that, it's going to say this file is read-only. You'll still be able to download it. I just won't be able to check it out. So that's kind of how the lifecycle states can kind of help control, you know, what gets modified. Obviously, as soon as you release a file, you don't want people making, you know, last-second changes to it or after the fact come back and change it without, you know, documenting that we bumped the revision on that file. Now there is ways to circumvent that. Obviously, it's always nice to have, as an administrator anyway, a way to kind of back up if need be. So I don't think I probably have admin rights with this one, but if you go to actions here, rollback lifecycle state change is that option, and it's saying now, maybe I do have options with this, the emailer account, but it's saying I'm going to go back from release back to for review. We'll say yes, and there it goes. So that's just kind of a, and I must have a little bit more permissions on with that emailer account than I was thinking, but the that does give you a way to kind of roll back. I know a lot of customers were asking for that. I think it, can't remember which version they added that, whether it was last year or a couple of versions ago, but that's kind of a nice way. If you accidentally release, you got one option there to go back. Okay, talked about Vault a little bit. I know that's just kind of scratching the surface. I will just take a look at the ECO process here for you quickly. If I, you know, select a couple parts that I'm ready to release on an ECO, and maybe that's a process that your company wants to implement, we can just right-click on those and go add the change order. Let's go new. And here's just the electronic ECO form. I guess the main benefit here is we can start to go paperless, and it's all built into the same system. So we can see the files here that I'm bringing in. As people start to go review these, they can click on it and actually, you know, review the files and the drawings right within this tool. So they don't have to go try to track them down. They can do measurements, and obviously if you had a drawing here along with this part, you'd be able to see that too and just verify the design. Basically, here's the workflow for the ECO process. We create it as soon as we submit it. If I save it right now, you know, we can eventually move that over to the open stage, and that's the change administrator has a chance then to either approve or deny that change. So it's almost more like a change request process here. Initially anyway. Once that change gets approved by the change administrator, it goes to the work stage, and that's where they can start, you know, adding whatever features are required to finish off that part. Once the engineer, that'd be the responsible engineer in that work stage, once they submit it and say they're done, it goes to the reviewers and the approvers. So the approvers actually are the ones who can kind of send it to the approved stage. Reviewers just get notified so that they can kind of check it out and kind of give their 2 cents. They can add comments here in order to kind of track that stuff. You know, it shows records here, pretty much the same as files, except when you get into the bill of material items. That's a whole other kind of section of Vault. We can add items here and manipulate your bill of materials. You know, you may realize too, if not all companies' bill of materials match their CAD data exactly. You might add other stuff to there like oil, grease, whatever, that you don't want to model up in your CAD environment. So that's where the bill of materials side allows you to manipulate those. You can build it from your CAD structure, but then also manipulate it within Vault. And then obviously you take it one step further, we can export that out to the ERP system and have that, you know, no more data reentry. So that's obviously a nice advantage here. There's a way to do that kind of manually just with Vault, but if you want to make that into an automated process, stick around for the next session 3. We'll be doing here at 11, and Aaron and Josh are going to talk about, you know, how our company can help you integrate with your ERP system. So and build, whether it's coming from Vault or whether your company uses a different tool, being able to eliminate some of that data reentry is definitely a step in the right direction. So anyway, that's the ECO process. As we, you know, just to kind of show it, watch it go through the stages here a little bit. I didn't add any on the general page here. We'd want to add, you know, maybe a change order title. We'll say try new design is better. Let's go with that. So we can save that and then hit submit, and we can enter in. Now this, what happens when we route it to different people, we can enter in a comment here in our email, but then it's going to just get, the next person in the routing line is going to get an email notification, and they can do their work on the ECO. Again, without ever really having to print it. I still kind of like printing stuff sometimes, so that's obviously an option. We can print these out if you want to look at a drawing or kind of look over the ECO, but it's nice to just have the electronic copy, the master copy stored in Vault. So I'll just say, please review and approve. Hit OK there, and now it can send off to the next person in line. So if I look back now, here's my ECO list down below. I don't think, is that one? Try new design. Okay, it is. I am still, because I'm the creator, it's in my work list here. If I select that one, so this is your work list, kind of shows that too, and you also get a little pop-up notification in addition to an email when you have any work to do. So we can just double click on that one to check it out. Now at open stage, and you see on the status here now, it's the change administrator is ready to approve it, or is the next person in line there to look at it. All right, I know we didn't cover a whole lot of the other topics I think I had in that initial slide, but revision control, the life cycle states, work in progress, I think we touched on that. Touched on the change management a little bit there. We looked at the thin client. I do want to kind of show you a little bit about PLM 360 here before time's up. So, and I keep saying PLM 360, I apologize. The new term is actually Fusion Lifecycle. However, when you go in there, it's interesting. Autodesk hasn't necessarily updated all of the terminology either. So you'll still see some remnants of PLM 360. That was the old, I guess, the old name for this product. You're probably familiar now too if you've kind of seen some of the Autodesk news coming out. And this isn't anything brand new, but Fusion Lifecycle, or that's what this is, Fusion Lifecycle. But then there's also Fusion 360, which is the cloud CAD platform that Autodesk has been, continuing to enhance and release out there. So that one's, it's maybe not quite as feature-rich as Inventor, but it is another option. Allows you to collaborate, use cloud storage a little bit with that. So something to maybe take a look at if you get a chance. Anyway, so this is Fusion Lifecycle, and again, it's a cloud data management tool. It's meant more for managing not necessarily CAD files, but all of the rest of the product documentation that goes with it. And then the other key thing is to be able to distribute that a little bit better, not just through your engineering team, but throughout every other department. So if I look at, this is my dashboard here that I'm showing when I'm logged in, and it just, when you log in, it's just going to prompt you for your Autodesk username and password. If you've got access to it, you'll be able to, navigate through it. Now, I don't have a ton of products out here to show you, but we do have a few anyway. So again, this is just my dashboard. I can see my recently viewed information, and then I just pegged something to my dashboard here, this upper bushing, which I've selected now, and we can preview it down below. So if we, just all the different product documentation here, item details, actually gives you a little thumbnail view image of the part, so you can kind of visualize a little bit better there. And then you look at the different tabs here, my bill of materials. So if I select that, and this is just an item that I've added to the dashboard, but here I can check my BOM right from my initial screen. If this is maybe the one that I'm working on over the the next week or whatever, attachments, requirements, we've got a sourcing page there, a lot of different tools, and this is really customizable too. I think that's one of the things some of our customers have kind of looked for. Obviously, with the Vault tab, if we look at the change order, remember that workflow that I showed? Let me just open that one up again. Just double click on it. So this workflow we can customize a little bit. We can add or take out one of these stages. However, it is kind of, and there's ways to kind of work around a stage if you want to just hit go twice, but it's not quite as easy to build your own workflow from scratch as it is in Fusion Lifecycle. So that's the thin client. Go over here. That's one of the advantages. I'll show that in a second here on how to kind of build your own workflow. for like a change order, for instance. If you want to use this for your change order process versus Vault, it's got some nice abilities in here. So, but just kind of looking at the main menu, I'm in as an administrator right now, so I do have the options here to go in and customize workflows. I'll show you that here in a second. But as a regular user, if you've got access to these different departments, you can see here's our program management. So some of the flyouts for that, project management, costing, the engineering side. We can look at different products, items, material specs. There's a design review tab in here. And you can basically turn on and off all these different things or even build your own workflows. So it's, again, it's once you have it set up, it is pretty slick. We've got change management. So there's my change request, change orders. We can even do timesheets, procurement, quality. There's some different tools in here for inspections and audits. Here's our manufacturing asset management, sales and marketing, service and support, and then there's some references, and there's even some ISO sections in here for just different best practices or standards that are noted within ISO. In order for you to become an ISO certified company, it kind of has those listed there in order for you to try to implement some of those things. So reports up on top, we've got some tools, so those are available as well. Let's just take a look at one of the, it's like within engineering anyway, let's take a look at products. And again, I don't have a ton loaded in here, but I do have one product. So let's pick that one. This is my top level. So if I select that one, it's going to take me into a screen here, kind of just slides over and shows me this is my overall assembly. So we get a little picture of it. And then let's say I want to take a look at the bill of materials or do any edits on this. We've got the edit button there, but let's just take a look at the bill. You can see right now we've got different ways to view the bill too. There's a nested and a flat. So this shows my indented nested bill of material to be able to look at all the different sub-assemblies underneath that. I think we can expand these as we go too. Obviously there's a lot of sub-assemblies in there, and as soon as you find the part you want, you can select that to be able to open it up and look at that one as well. And here's some information on I guess I just picked like a bolt there. But let's go back out. So we can just use our back button there to get to the previous pushing page. Oh, I guess the back button maybe didn't work. Oh, there it is. Just kind of took a while to refresh that. So that's just kind of, obviously I'm not going to get into too much. There's a lot of stuff to cover here. Obviously, I do want to kind of highlight, the ability to modify your own workflows. But you can see all the information you've got at your fingertips, obviously all the different departments here that have access to this, and they're looking at, there's only one drawing in here. Obviously you've got the revision history, but the latest, if that's what you're looking for, that's what everybody's pointing to the same spot. So let's take a look at the administration once and take a look at how to customize your own or even just build from scratch your own workflows within here. So they do kind of give you some default templates to use. So I go into change orders, for instance. I go down here to this workflow editor. There's a lot of different ways to customize, not only the settings, but what the descriptions mean, the different, tab names and behaviors, stuff like that. But I think the key one for me is this workflow editor. You can come in here and just kind of build this. We can move things around. We can, right-click, cut, copy these different pieces. If we stretch it, you'll notice there's kind of it's almost like if you've used Visio a little bit. We can manipulate here how the routings interact, and if you I'm just going to undo that one. If you can see, this is getting reinstate or on hold. Actually, might as well start from the create stage and then route the change. If I click on any of these, it shows what permissions are required in order to do this. So we can change those out here, and then obviously change the name of the routing. Have it. What actions do we want to do as this action happens? We can notify owner by email on occurrence. So there's all kinds of notifications you can set up, different routings for people who you want involved in the process, and a lot of that just kind of comes down to which role that you give each of the person, what permissions you give them, and that's kind of done, on the back on that administrator page when you set up your users. So you can see how this one out of the box, we've got a fast track change order. But if you go through the normal route track, it goes to the CCB, I think that's the change control board, in order to review the change. And once they submit it, it goes for final approval and implementation. And then at the end here, it's released. So again, I'm not going to get into the process here too much, obviously, of building one from scratch. But if you wanted to delete, say a spot out of here, we can, cut this one out and then maybe build a connection from that one here to this one, and now that's we just manipulate the process just like that. So it's kind of nice. So if you want to see more about that, let me know. We can certainly set up a demonstration to be able to kind of walk through some of the other and highlight some of the other features there with this. All right, let's close out of that. We're not going to save that one. Just kind of a quick overview there of some of the key things in Fusion Lifecycle. With that, I want to bounce back to the presentation here, and I'll open it up for any questions, if there are any. I'll just double check that quick here. And I'm not seeing any questions yet. Feel free to put those in right now. I do have a couple that I've been asked in the past here from a lot of customers, and the one is, how to publish released drawing DWFs automatically when we're using the lifecycle state, and that's in Vault. So if you think about, let me just bounce back to that quick. So within Vault, as you release files, if I go back to this BOM tab, we bump that back to for review. Let me just release those again. So we go change state to released. And now they're out there for production. I'm just going to download them so I get the new symbol there. So we got the lock next to them. Now, if I look at the DWFs on this now, if I go to the preview, it's going to show that it hasn't been updated. Normally, these DWFs within Inventor anyway only get created as you check in files. But with the job processor that comes with Vault Professional, that's the tool that we would use. So we'd set up the job processor to run these, and then if we go to the well, there's another setting, I guess. Let me just check that quick. Under Vault settings, behaviors, life cycles. As we change transition here, I'm going to select the basic release. As we transition, I'm going to have to do an edit on that. In fact, we'll go to for review. We'll just edit this whole thing. And then if it goes to for review to released, we can do an edit on the transition. And then if I go to actions, there's an option in here to synchronize properties and also update view using job server. So if I select that one and check that, now if I hit OK, as it does that, it's going to send it to the job processor and update those jobs. I'm just going to cancel. I'll show you where that job processor is another tool that comes with your Vault Professional install. I'll just try typing it out in here. So there's my job processor for Vault 2017, and it's not a very pretty interface by any means, but in the background it can be real powerful because it can sit and do this work for you either at night, at certain times throughout the day, or whenever you wanted to. So right now mine's set to start processing right away, but just let me see if I can. Yeah, I'm just going to pause it first. And if I go into the job types, here's some of the different things that we can do with it. So obviously the create DWFs is the primary reason, but you can also synchronize properties, update revision block. So there's I had a license borrowed there. So, but this is kind of what it looks like. So it just runs these. Right now it's synchronizing properties. It's running those jobs in the background. And you can, obviously you have to be logged in as an administrator to be able to do it, and then you eventually resume those jobs and it'll just sit and run in the background. So you can every user can have this running on their machine. I don't always recommend that. Sometimes I'll I guess suggest having maybe a virtual machine run this and maybe just run at night or just run throughout certain times of the day. All right, any other questions? I'm not seeing anything come in here. So with that, I guess thanks for attending the GoToMeeting here. Just a couple last things. I'm going to stop the recording.